Welcome, everybody. I know some of you are still waking up and now you're in a comfy chair, and my job is to keep you awake. That's going to be hard, I think, but I'm going to try. Yesterday, I'm sure it was great. Did everybody have a great time yesterday? Yeah? Yeah. What I was able to attend, I really enjoyed it. I just want to, before I start, build on what Adrian said about building a life. Not to put somebody on the spot, but I worked somewhere before Google, and that is where I met my wife, who is here. So I totally agree. Building a life sometimes starts at work. And the funny thing is, back then we were both engineers, software engineers. We called ourselves programmers, application delivery. But we worked with two product managers. We didn't understand what they did really. But they were product managers, and they got married too. It's so crazy. It's really a true story. So let me find my clicker. So I want to talk about making products. I used to introduce myself through the products that I helped create with teams, mostly at Google and maybe some others. This time I thought I would go with the topic at hand, which is AI, and ask generative AI to introduce me. And so let's first start with Bing, which you know is connected to OpenAI. So it's basically asking ChatGPT. And this was back in June. I did a presentation similar to this. And this is what it said back in June. Jonathan Rochelle is an entrepreneur, technology product manager, true. Currently VP of learning content and instructors, true. Leads development of learning products at LinkedIn, true. Like, this was really going well. Also a co-founder of Google Docs products, true, that's awesome. But somehow Bing was trying to push me back to Google. He is now director of product management for Google Apps. So that was not true. So it was pretty close, but not quite there. So I figured in November now, how many months later, 4 or 5 months later, let me try it again. And things have changed. Let's again start with Bing. Prominent figure in the tech industry. What? Career spanning from Google to LinkedIn. Okay, partially true. Right? I'm going to take the prominent figure thing. I should have worn a tie today. Currently VP of product management at LinkedIn. Great. That's awesome. Also an advisor and investor. Yes, I advise and I invest. Co-founder of Google Drive. Revolutionized cloud storage and collaboration. I definitely should have worn a jacket too. You're seeing there's a conspiracy theory I'm building to here. Actually, two. The first is obviously my mom was involved in training the Bing AI. Background in computer science and engineering, yes. Author of several books. I never wrote a book. But articles on product management, yes. I have a little newsletter on LinkedIn, so I write some articles on product management. And widely regarded as one of the most influential product managers in the world. Adrian, good job recruiting. But clearly the conspiracy here is my mom was on the phone with Bing Chat training it. He's the best. He's the most influential. Thank you, Mom. But the second conspiracy theory is more interesting. I figured, let me ask the other AI, Google Bard. I was there for 14 years. That's what Google Bard thinks. Thou hast forsaken me. So that is unfortunate, but true. My main takeaways, I just want to start with the punchline here. Everybody really, as a product manager, you've got to learn the industry, the tools, the services, what's happening. And I would almost say on a daily basis, keep feeding your brain, experiment and learn more that way. Reconsider everything. This is a huge change, as you probably heard yesterday several times as well. And it applies to all professional roles, which means no matter where your product sits, no matter what professional role you serve, AI is probably an important part of your product. And be fearless and cautious. You can really try new things, but there's some caution that's due here, and we'll talk about that. So that's sort of the summary, but I wanted to be fearless and try AI in my presentation. I figured I would let it train on all of the activity yesterday and some of the posts that are made on LinkedIn, and let it actually reorder my slides and skip over the stuff that might be irrelevant to you. So we're going to try that, and I'm going to be fearless. See what happens. So thinking, hopefully it doesn't skip too much. Oh, oh, I guess it's all irrelevant. No, I'm just kidding. So this is the way I used to introduce myself. I feel more comfortable on stage if you see me the way I see myself. This is me going for the interview of my first internship ever. I did not get the job, but I thought I looked good. Three-piece suit and tie. I looked like one of the most influential product managers in the world. But of course, I had to add AI, and I had to make it a little more interesting because that single picture just doesn't fly anymore. So I figured, let's make it fly. So this is what can be done in literally 20 minutes online. I used Kyber, if you've ever heard of Kyber. Really simple, and there's many more like it. So Gen AI is not the future, it's now, obviously. We've been talking about it so much. It's like that crystal city on the horizon. At LinkedIn, we have so much data, and we have data that shows the symptoms of this. There are 21 times more job postings that mention ChatGPT and GPT generally year on year for November. 46% of professionals globally there was a study done, and it was 29,000 LinkedIn members were included in the study. That was the N, was 29,000. That 46% are using AI and Gen AI in their jobs today. That's a lot for a year from that big announcement last year. And 84% of US LinkedIn members believe that they are in jobs that could use AI to improve the productivity, to automate more than 25% of their tasks. Again, a big deal. And you've got to keep up. You've got to keep feeding your brain. YouTube is one place you can do it. There's people that make their living by making sure you're up to date. And they do well if you are getting the information you need. So they're going to do a good job for you. So this guy tried 200 AI tools and tells us which ones are the best. And I watch these videos like on a regular basis. Every morning I watch a little bit. And then this robot said, well, I tried 250 and these are the best. So this guy had to say, well, I had tried even more, so those are the best. And then this other person tried the 10 free AI tools. And this other guy, Matt Wolf, has crazy AI news almost every other day. And then there's, AI for, other tools that are better than ChatGPT, and everybody challenges ChatGPT, and you can learn anything, and you can do music, and you can even make money with ChatGPT. If you look online, it's just insane how much is happening. And so my head is exploding. It's just so much information. This really does change everything. And I would say, like electricity, I remember when electricity was introduced, but like the web and cloud, I do remember when the web and cloud were introduced, but it really does change everything. You have to look at everything you're doing and reconsider it. Mobile computing was another example. If you went through that progression, you probably remember the execs in the room and everybody else, and even your customers perhaps saying mobile first. Don't do it on the web first. Do it on mobile first and then move to the web. That's what's happening with AI. There are a few sources that I would say are really good sources to stay up to date and simple. And there are, again, I'm only showing you 2 or 3. There are just hundreds and hundreds. And if you find them, I would say for this tribe, find a way to share those resources. It would be incredible, actually, if Peak could come up with ways to help people share and rank these resources in a really strong way. But this is one. Stanford University, the Human-Centered Artificial Intelligence Group, has several articles, but generally a place you can go. And you can search for that, HAI within Stanford, really strong. And I learned a lot here, and there's a lot to learn. One of those YouTubers I actually do listen to on a regular basis because he's prolific. And I don't feel like I have to go scour the web for this information because he does it for me. And all I need to do with him is subscribe, and he's happy. And it's Matt Wolf, and he's got a site that he keeps, and this is the part that why I actually follow him, where if I miss a day or a week or a month or whatever tools, he puts them all in this thing called futuretools.io. So if you're ever looking for an AI tool in a specific area, you can go filter and sort through that at futuretools.io. So I'm not an affiliate of Matt, I promise. I sound like I'm selling him. But I am selling LinkedIn Learning. So LinkedIn Learning is an awesome resource. If your company has LinkedIn Learning as a resource, use it. If you're a premium member, you have LinkedIn Learning, use it. There are over 300 courses on artificial intelligence. When the big announcement happened in November, and we all know AI was big before that, and we actually had tons of AI content before that. But when November happened last year, ChatGPT and OpenAI generally became more commonplace. We basically committed, we're gonna lead in this market of learning AI for professionals. And so now we have about 300 courses. It changes literally weekly. The LinkedIn Learning team produces just tremendous amounts of content, and it's all highly professional. So 300 courses on artificial intelligence. If you narrow that down to generative AI, there's like 40 something courses. If you narrow that down more to prompt engineering, I think there's 14 courses just on prompt engineering. And 14 courses is like 140 videos or more. And then several on, within any function. So artificial intelligence and design as an example. So like I said, you can get this if you're a member of a company that subscribes to LinkedIn Learning, or if you're a premium member. But we actually recently did a blog post where we're making 10 of the most popular courses, the ones that almost everybody watches, free. So if you follow this link, you'll get to that blog post that describes where to find those. Now, it's only till December 15th, but I will just say we've done this several times, so you may see it happen again where we make a whole bunch of them free. Just leaving that up there so people can grab it. So generally, this idea of artificial intelligence, like we've seen so much and said so much before, it's a big area, but I think there has been since the last November this misnomer. Now, in this audience, probably not as much, so I'll speed through it. But ChatGPT is almost how people refer to GAI, generative AI now, as that's like the Band-Aid brand, like a brand that became the name for the thing. And it's just a reminder that it's not. It's just one product within the scope of generative AI, which is one area within the scope of artificial intelligence. And it's really important because generative AI is just a small component still. It's obviously really important, but so much of what we use today and so much of what we can use in our products is not generative AI, it's AI. And that's what you see in a lot of products today, even in LinkedIn. A tremendous amount of AI has happened way before last November. And LLMs are just that concept, that capability, that tool to make a lot of this work. And that's what happened, how generative AI basically came about. So let's talk about the elephant in the room. Can we be replaced by generative AI? Everybody talks about those jobs that can be replaced, and there's a lot of worry. What about product managers? Sure, we can use it, but can it replace us? So I'll just say maybe, and we can all contemplate this and think about the parts of our job that we can make better. But I'll say when generative AI can identify the problem to solve, that's actually one of the most important things we do. If it can propose and pitch the solution, and again, it helps us think through, well, how could it? Maybe it could actually help us do that. If it can build and motivate a team, that's a little harder. And so we're challenging it a little more. And I have to say, every time I think about this slide, I keep thinking, wait, an elephant can replace me? Oh no, it's generative AI is the elephant in the room that can replace me. Got it, it's not an elephant. Can generative AI be annoying like we all need to be and stick to the plan and keep the team motivated? It's probably one of the most important things we do as leaders, as product leaders, as we're trying to develop and build something. Can we be optimistic? Can generative AI be optimistic in the face of doom? It's one of the things a lot of us do on a daily basis. Facing doom. Anybody relate to that? Facing doom in their product? It happens. Speaking of Jamboard. Narrow the problem scope and prioritize. It's an art, right? It's not a science. Do people ask you all the time as a product manager, how do you prioritize? And if you do it as a science, that's fine. It can be done, but it's not necessarily the best method. It's more of an art. And I'm not convinced yet that generative AI can do that. Make confident decisions, often without data. Now that's really hard for a machine to do. And most importantly, hallucinate. Well, we both can do that. Maybe that's the one that's actually the check mark. And, convince people you're right, even though you're hallucinating. I do that on a daily basis. A lot of hand waving. So where does Gen AI fit in product management? There are 3 general categories. It's important to kind of think this through because they are different. The first is really in the actual product development process. when you're developing your product, what can you do to use generative AI in that process? The second is as features in your product. And that's what we all think about is how can I use generative AI in my product? How can I add features that are going to make my product superhuman, make it amazing and make it the best on the market? How am I going to beat my competition to that? And the third is in support of the product, both before the sale and after the sale. And that's one of the areas that's probably the most prolific right now because it's been happening for quite a while. So using it in product development, you can do things like generate ideas. You can research. I've seen people do things where they're feeding a prompt that's very explicit to say, if I was an engineer in a manufacturing company that was trying to use a product to do X, which is what your product does, how would you respond to the following questions? And it's a really interesting result. And I would definitely compel you to try that. Now, obviously, use care. Hallucination there won't help you much to develop a good product, but exploring jobs to be done, finding what those things are. Again, setting it up with a prompt that really says, well, what persona do you want the machine to take on? And then how do you want this thing to be done? Writing a product pitch, getting the words the way you want it to be, generating the slides. I think like if I did most of my pictures, obviously, there's no elephant in that room either. With generative AI, it's really straightforward, but the whole deck could be generated that way. And it's a good starting point sometimes. Sometimes it's not. I tried a few tools and some of them are not there. They're not quite ready. Developing demo scripts, trying to create a flow that you feel really means something to people. Generating and editing content. Most of our products, I know mine do, contain content. And getting that content sometimes is painful, especially if you need to have a lot of that content. And generating the content and editing it can be really powerful. Analyzing data, taking data in. And again, prompts are becoming so important here. Even generating prototype code, and we heard this from you, even others. And generating marketing ideas. How do you get this thing to market? Now, within your product, what kind of things can you do in the features? Only you really know what you can do, or your customers do. But definitely some of the areas, conversational interfaces. If you ever see an input on a screen, consider that it might be better off being natural language. Make it conversational. Allow people to enter whatever it is they want, and then let your AI figure out what they meant and break it into the parts that you needed it to be in data format. Classifying inputs and matching to expected values. We've seen this in the past. This is very obvious. It's not even necessarily generative. It's just AI. Auto-suggesting, but auto-suggesting long prose. So today, you see in LinkedIn messaging or you see in Gmail where it's suggesting, and that's pretty good. You can do a really quick, just one click and do an auto response, but it's usually 2 or 3 words. Now you can do long prose. You can actually help people create content inside of your product. Navigation assistance is really powerful. Letting people say what they're trying to accomplish and just taking them there. Not forcing them to go to help, go down, do a search in help, go to an article, go to a link in the article, find the feature, and then go to it and learn how to use it. Let them just type in what they're trying to do and guide them there with AI. And improving search in your product. Clearly, natural language is really powerful for search. I can relate to that in our product. In LinkedIn Learning, our search sometimes is complex and hard to navigate. But we're working on ways to make it really simple. I'll show you one of those ways. And summarizing content. That's one of the ones, I would say was the early entrant into Gen AI was summarizing content. But this is the place to innovate. This is the place that you really matter, where if you understand what can be done, you can change the value of your product for your users. And then that last category, in support of your product, you can make the people that work around the product for whether it's early marketing and sales or in support, turn them into superheroes. And again, this superhero, if you look at his hand closely, you can tell he's not really a superhero. The hand is always what gives it away. We're going to miss that one day. One day the hands are going to come out good and we're going to be like, oh. Marketing content ideas. So really understanding how to market your product. Come up with ideas, like really some catchy phrases and things will pop out. You'll be shocked. Sales strategies. Understand, how do I reach the people that I see as the personas that would buy my product? That would be the most interesting. I have people ask me often, like, I have this product, it's today sold to these people. How would I get it over to these people? How would I get them to know about it? You'd be shocked if you ask ChatGPT or Bard or any of them that question. You'll get answers that are meaningful. It's really shocking. I'm sure you've tried this, but customer support is probably one of the most prolific areas, and it's something that was very big even before Gen AI. Helping agents that are supporting your product be 10 times more powerful than they were just on their own. Classifying feedback from customers, and this is really important. We're going to talk about that loop of feedback. Really critical to make sure that you actually have that loop of feedback and classify it as it comes in. Use AI to classify it. Analyzing funnel data, that could be one of the inputs into how you're analyzing how your product is being used. And pricing is one of the most complex things I've ever worked on. And it's really hard. And you may get some assistance through AI. There's so much here. But think about every function of your product. And if you're a product manager in a small company where you truly are thinking of every function, you don't have a person you can point to, it might be incredibly powerful to use AI often. So AI is a very deep exploration, as you probably already know. But remember, today is the worst it'll be. Anything we're using today is the very beginning. It's only going to get better from here, and it's going to get better fast. We can see, I'm confident saying that because I've seen what's happened over 1 year. I used ChatGPT the other day, and I was so shocked at how fast it was, because I remember just a month or two ago, it was incredibly slow. And all of a sudden, it was just flying answers at me, and I was taken aback by how fast it is. Remember that better data is going to make your AI better. So when you are thinking about investing in AI, think about investing in the foundation of the AI, which is the data that is fed into it. And that will mean so much more as you start moving from large language model only to small language model and prompt engineering and things that we'll go through a little bit, that make it even more specific to your use cases. But better data is critical, and it might be the moat for your product against your competitors. If you have data that they don't have, that's one of the most powerful things for how AI is implemented in your product. And keeping humans in the loop is totally reasonable and probably expected, especially at this stage. Don't hesitate to think about how to make the humans that are in the loop better, not just replace. And I think that's one of the misnomers that people have about AI, that, oh, it's going to replace me. No, it probably will make you better. And sometimes hallucination for your product is not necessarily a negative thing if your product is meant to be creative. So when you think about even image creation, there is a bit of a slider, I think, in most of them, that is this measure to say, do you want me to hallucinate, or do you want me to be spot on with what you're asking for? And sometimes you want a little bit of creativity. So don't hesitate too fast, depends on your application, to say, oh my gosh, all hallucination is bad. There may be some creativity there. But prepare for rogue results. There's going to be some bad stuff going on that comes back into your app that you don't necessarily want to use. Remember that the LLMs, they have collective intelligence, but they also have collective everything else. Sarcasm and opinion and comedy and the things that don't matter. Anything that was on the web is now in the LLM, and you might not want that in your product. So you have to protect it. It's really critical. But keep learning. The new methods are coming fast, and I want to go through one of them. But you can keep inventing. There's so much room for invention here. How many people here have heard of RAG, the RAG model, RAG method? Retrieval Augmented Generation. I'm actually glad to see no hands, sort of. But you will probably hear of it, and I would highly recommend looking it up. Because if you're going to use AI, this might be over, I'm going to say the next year, maybe more. You never know. This is interesting. You never know what might, supersede. But RAG right now, Retrieval Augmented Generation, is really critical for narrowing responses and citing sources. So we talk about rogue results. This is one of the most important things to us at LinkedIn, and it's very important to others. I'm just going to describe quickly how this works. Today in, let's call it ChatGPT to put ourselves in that little box, but any of these generative AI chats, a user query, somebody enters a prompt, it becomes the prompt for the machine, and the prompt goes to the LLM and generates the response. And that's how the chat works. It's very simple. Use a query becomes the prompt goes to the LLM, and you get a response. And that response could contain garbage. It could contain hallucination, and it certainly won't tell you where it got it from. But the RAG method actually adds to the prompt. The user query also goes to a traditional search engine. It just goes to the search index. It creates a query that creates search results that become part of the prompt. So you can imagine now your prompt just got that much better. It didn't only have your, how do I fix my HVAC? It also went over and said, here are some articles that should be used. And now the prompt is incredibly complete. And so this model, and then the citation becomes part of the response. This model was used in Bing when Bing actually first put ChatGPT in so that you could see the learn more links that were the references to the sources where that answer came from, which was really critical. So when you think about whether Gen AI is right for your product, remember, it's still early. Quality is critical. You have to understand randomness versus facts, what's part of your product. And that's where that RAG method was used for Bing. It could be used for you. We use it in different ways at LinkedIn. Speed is critical. It's becoming a little less of a worry, I would say. It's becoming way faster. It's not free. Obviously, you've got to think about cost. You can't just implement AI and not think about these things. And you got to think about the form factor. If you have a mobile app and you need AI there, you got to know if it's going to be local, are you going to have connectivity to get to the data you need, to get to the model? But there are loads of constraints and risks, and we've talked a lot about this. Hallucination. You're going to get good and bad data. You're going to get stale information. Obviously, that's changing a lot. When you see the announcements for GPT-4 and 4 Turbo or 3 Turbo, 4 Turbo, the basic data that's being used is a lot more current. And the LLMs are incredibly large. Like I said, they're expensive. It's not always the best choice for everything. But prioritize safety and trust. I would say this is probably one of the most important concepts in using AI. Having a human in the loop is really sensible, and make sure you focus on the trust of your brand. It's important to every brand. If you don't think about trust in your brand and you're using AI, you could find yourself in some trouble. Your customers are depending on you, and the products that they're using that are yours are probably meaning something to their customers, particularly if you're in B2B, obviously. That's something that you are responsible for. And so you've got to prioritize safety and trust. And now it's even more important. Technology is a regulated industry. And yes, that is a product manager in a courtroom. And in October, just a month ago, in the US, there was an executive order related to this. And that's as good as a law. And that's putting in place some of these limitations and constraints. Things like making sure companies that produce AI-generated content watermark it to make sure people know that it's generated. At LinkedIn, we have responsible use of AI principles. The first one is basically connected to our strategy, advancing economic opportunity. We're not going to use AI if it's not going to advance to our mission. We have to uphold trust, promote fairness and inclusion, provide transparency, and embrace accountability. It's our responsibility to do this right. I'll just posit that there's potentially another definition, not an alternative, but another definition of responsible use of AI. And that is, it might be our responsibility to use AI where it could truly help all of humankind and really help people. It's then our responsibility to say we should be using AI and doing it in a fair and equitable way. Now, one of the things that makes you able to be more responsible and improve your AI as you're working on it is to design the flows for feedback, build in the signals for model and ranking, collect the feedback and use it. Use reinforcement learning and understand those feedback loops, but build it into your product. It is a feature that you have to build. You have to engineer it. And reinforcement learning from human feedback is one of those things to look up and to learn and to understand how it's used. So AI is in a lot of LinkedIn products. It's already there, from matching, recommendations, to Copilot content creation. I'm going to show you a couple of those examples very quickly. If you're using LinkedIn Recruiter, if you're in the recruiting business, we help you to create job descriptions. We can generate some of that job description for you when we have some of the keywords and some of the key desires that you've got for that job. And it's a great starting point. Writing assistance for your profile. If you stare at your profile thinking, how am I going to describe myself? Let it help you. Key takeaways. If you're reading a long post, I'll say one of my long posts that's too long, and you're like, give me the key takeaways. Give me the, just give me the takeaways, and that's it. You can get them really quickly. Messaging assistance. If you're trying to reach out to a company for a role, you can actually get help writing that message. Collaborative articles. You might have already been asked to participate in writing for collaborative articles. And Learning Coach, this is something that I worked on extensively, and we're now actually launching it in beta, allows learners to talk to the machine, to talk to our learning library and ask questions and get responses. So again, if you are in a company that's using LinkedIn Learning, look for that AI coaching link on the left side, on the left navigation, and you might have access to it already. But it's a conversation with LinkedIn Learning. So again, learn everything, experiment and learn more. Reconsider everything you're doing. Make sure that you can use AI in the most powerful ways for your users. And let it apply to all the professional roles that you serve, and be fearless and cautious. Oh, and we're going to use my model again to truly get to the end. Thank you.